No worries, go for it. You'll see on the two yellow marker poles, they signify a sanctuary zone. When you're in a boat, you're not allowed to fish anywhere north of those two yellow marker poles for up to 5 kilometres north and for 5 kilometres directly out to the west. That way the fish can build up in our sanctuary zones and then overflow into other areas where we are allowed to fish. And that gives us a sustainable fishing future. Our fish stocks out there are back to virginal. In other words, how it was before we got here, before white man got here. This is pretty much happening nowhere else in the world. We're leading the way in how to run a fishery. Now off to your right hand side you'll see a little white bird hanging out there, that's Igor. He's our eastern reef egret and he's got a missus called Eleanor. She comes, now they can be white or grey, these birds, we get both colours here. So it makes it a little bit tricky around mating season for them. They've got to go, are you a boy or a girl? There goes the osprey in front of us. He's either got a fish or nesting material. They're doing up a nest over there on the left, just near the jetty. Now the osprey lives in every continent except for Antarctica. The ones in Europe actually migrate down to Africa during the winter months. So they get sick of eating frozen fish from the English Channel. Now we'll talk more about the ospreys later on. Now these mangroves on the right hand side, the ones with the lighter coloured leaves, that's your silver or white mangrove. The ones with the dark green leaves, that's your green mangrove, also known as a red-rooted mangrove. Now the red-rooted mangrove has very strong roots, go deep down into the riverbank. Now, during cyclone season in northern Queensland, they tie their boats off these during cyclones and they sit up the creek. How crazy does that sound? Malcolm Douglas did a documentary on this place, and what happens is 3 days before the weatherman calls the low pressure system a cyclone, all the Yirriganji box jellyfish come swimming up the creek. All the locals go, right, there goes the jellyfish, that's going to be a cyclone for sure, and they slowly start packing up. 3 days later, there's the weatherman on the news, and he goes, by the way, that low pressure system is going to be a cyclone tomorrow. And then everyone packs up and they head up the creek and they tie off to these red roots on both sides and they sit through, just like Malcolm Douglas did for his documentary, and they sit through winds up to and over 200 k's an hour for 8 hours in their little boats up a creek tied off the roots. How crazy does that sound? You wouldn't want to run out of beer, would you? Now talking about smart animals, there's a lot of them around here. On the right hand side you'll see a large termite nest. Now there's over 2,300 types of termites in the world, 460 of them live in Australia. That one's called the Spinifex termite. Inside of that termite nest it remains between 28 and 30 degrees all year round. There's the osprey eating his fish, I think. Let's go and check him out, eh? Yeah, he's eating the fish. That's how he does it. There you go. That's a pretty rare photo, that one. Usually they're up on a cliff face and you can't even see them. Now inside of that termite nest it remains between 28 and 30 degrees all year round, which is the perfect temperature for the female to lay her larvae, the queen, or to have her eggs, but lay her larvae is more the proper thing to say. Now also there's about 1 million of them living in there. They also make all the clay tennis courts in the world out of termite nests they get from South Africa. But today, what about the missus? Don't forget to save a bit for Sharon, mate. Oh really? You tell her to go catch her own, did you?
There's a croc.
There you go. You're going to show your friends and they're going to go, what happened? The osprey turned into a wedge tail. He has to take off into the wind, so he's got to take off towards us. He's scabbing for food, I reckon.
Oh yeah.
He's gone, where's the fish gone? Ozzy's like, mate, I've already nicked off with it. There is another wedgetail way up in the sky. I'm going to talk a lot about these. Wayne and Wendy wedgetail are the cause for a lot of the osprey's kids dying. Here we go, he might take off here. They eat the kids. And then the crows in the background are going, are we going to get a feed too? There you go. How's it going, Wayne? Anyway, the echidna opens up the termite nest and she sticks in her 18 centimetre long tongue and it goes in and out of that termite nest 100 times a minute. She can eat 200 grams of termites in about 10 minutes. It's about the size of a cheeseburger. So to the echidna, every one of those termite nests looks a bit like a drive-through McDonald's. I'll have one cheeseburger, thanks. And a termite thick shake, because that's where she gets all her moisture from as well. Look at that photo bomber coming through. Those pythons, parentes, dingoes, cats, everything wants to eat them. That's why they've got to live in the rocky cliff faces, so they can hide away from all their predators.
Get a
For us, do you take an adult or only a joey?
Mate, I would say he could start with an adult and have a go at one if you could. So they're trying to work out where to nest. They're thinking about nesting down near the jetty where you guys got on board, but also here. Yellow rock over here with a hole in the middle, an 8-year-old kid named it after an Australian snack. What do you reckon he called it? Well done.
Wow.
Cheesel rock, there you go, you've lived. You don't need to go to Uluru, you've got those histories now. And that's Sharon up. I don't know if that's any good with the sun behind it. Probably not that great. The sun out, but I don't know where your angle's going to go. Now the deepest part of the creek straight in front of us, up against those big cliffs there. They say it's about 8 to 10 metres deep. That's their nests. That's where they lay eggs and have kids. 2 egrets will have 3 kids each. And along comes Wayne and Wendy and eats all their kids. 50% of birds don't make it to 1 year old. They have food for other animals and other birds. So, except for the one in the cave, they've had successful kids for the last 3 years straight. Because as you saw with the wedge-tail, he can't fit in a little hole like that, can he? He's too big. But he can get into all of these other nests and eat everyone's kids. So 50% of birds don't make it to 1 year old. They have food for other birds and other animals. Some large osprey nests. There's 3 up there in total. Cyclones still standing. Maybe we should send the ospreys down to Calvary. Show them how to build a house. Quite solid because the iron ore's mixed up with the limestone. Just saw a rock wallaby come out behind us. We'll go and check him out. He's lying on a rock. And this stuff was alluvial there. It's just all over the ground. But here, obviously, with the layers, it's deep down underneath us here. So you can pass those around, have a little feel for them. Try not to drop them on the ground, but I think they're pretty much almost indestructible. Tail roots, and they actually soak in moisture from the sea breeze when it comes in each day, and that's how they survive. They're like bonsai plants, aren't they? You might notice the one with the biggest root has actually got the smallest tree. There you go, size does matter. Maybe. So 8 to 10 metres deep there, 3 to 5 metres in most other places. The next part we're going to go through is the Aboriginal fish trap. And I don't know if you can see from where you're sitting, there's a rock. What are you looking at?
Wallaby.
A wallaby, where?
Yeah, just there.
On the right hand side. Come back to that one in a minute. What is that? He must have seen the wedge-tailed eagle earlier. And he went on getting the hell out of here.
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
So the next part we're coming up to is the shallowest part of the creek, known as the fish trap, Aboriginal fish traps. Now it's very narrow gap through the fish trap here. On a low tide when we're open to the ocean, I cannot take the boat through here, it's too low. This is where they marched in a line and scared the fish up against this very shallow rock wall just in front of us now. Now there's other types of fish traps, like way up north, they make picket fences in a round circle. They have 8 metre high tides and things like that with a 2 metre high picket fence, and they throw a bit of food in there. All the fish get trapped in there when the tide goes out. That's pretty clever, isn't it? And way down south in a place called Denmark near Albany, they got rocks like on the right hand side here. They make basins out into the water, and on a high tide they throw a bit of food in there. The fish all go in there, and crabs and prawns in Denmark. They got a whole seafood basket there. And mussels all along the edges of the rocks, and the fish get stuck in there when the tide goes back out again, and including the crustaceans. .16 Dirk Hardog cone stuck up his plate. on Dirkardog Island and said I was here. And 170 years later, the British monarchy said to old Cookie, old James, do go out to New Holland, approach it from the east, stick a flag in it and call it ours, would you? That's not discovering anything, that's finding something that someone else has already found, mapped out, stuck a plate up on, and called New Holland. So when everyone goes, oh, Captain Cook discovered Australia, well, I don't know about that. I think the old history teachers might have to have a good look at themselves. Anyway, he was doing it right, wasn't he, until he went to Hawaii and let the Hawaiians think that he was a god for about 3 months. They weren't too happy when they found out he wasn't, were they? He had the original spa, didn't he? Yes. Anyway, and they went home for an early knockoff. And the boss said, well, if it's that easy, you can go back there and build me a whaling station. So they came back here and built the Norwegian Bay whaling station around 40 k's south of us here. Apparently you can still go there and see remnants of it. Now that one kept going until the late 1950s. The one in, when it finally fell apart under their feet, most of them just went down the road to Babbage Island whaling station in Carnarvon. That one kept going until the late 1960s. The coast, on the east coast, they got down to 500 humpbacks left before they stopped whaling. Crazy, isn't it? Now the gorge then continues directly east for about 5 k's and it splits into 2 different gorges, one going southeast and one going northeast, with a 25, and they go for 15 k's each, and there's a 20 square kilometre catchment area in the middle. It's got the largest catchment area out of all the gorges in the Cape Range. In other words, we get more rain through here when it rains than anywhere else. And years ago we had over 300 mils in one night, and it went up over the vegetation in front of us on this hill. You can see everything leans a bit to the right. That's because it all went underwater at one stage. Guys down in up in Broome, they couldn't sell their pearl luggers for bottom dollar. They just went and ran them up on the beach, and off to the pub they went. That's the end of that job, they said. Now this didn't last very long. It only lasted 2 years. Because then along came Mikimoto from Japan, and he said, if you follow my methods of pearl farming, you can turn all this bad luck around. So of course they listened. I'm going to say hello to that one. There's 2.
I had 2, yeah.
30 on there today. He's busy as. Oh, they're so cute. Aren't they? I know. I lived with quokkas for about 7 years on Roto. I thought they were cute, but these guys, they're just special.
There we go.
Just lit up in the sun, straight down from that. He just came up and stuck his head up and saw us and went back. So that's called myrtle, but if it's got a tail, it's called myrtle, that's the girl. No tail, and it's birdle, that's the bloke. After the sheep farms World War II, and they had Operation Potshot, Secret Army, Air Force, Navy base set up here, where our airport is these days. Their mock jetty was actually... So the Japanese bombed 3 nights in a row, but they missed everything. They probably just dropped their bombs and they got away with it. But then they went and... then the English said, now don't... Well, they came over and they did the English version of the plan, and they went up there and they blew up a few ships. But in the end, the guy in a submarine was supposed to turn up to pick them up. Well, he didn't turn up for 2 weeks. He was 2 weeks late picking the guys up. They were all dead by the time he got there. Very sad ending to World War II. There was a rock wallaby. Oh yeah, there he is. Wait, we got another one out the front on the right hand side after I clip as well.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go, that's not her lunch. Not unless she ate something alive. If we just wait here for a minute, we might just get that special moment. Now, if it does stick its head out, you're all going to want to go, oh my God, look at that. And when you do that, it will put its head straight back in again. So you've got to be very quiet, show a little bit of self-control if it sticks its head out. It's quite funny, sometimes you just get a tail stick. Boys are always fighting over the girls. There'll be one girl up there causing all the trouble. And her husband will say to her later on, you never wear that dress out in public again, honey. Look at the commotion you caused. So the one on the far right, I reckon, is the female, the other 3 are males.
4.
I don't know which one that is. I reckon the one up highest might be the alpha male. Oh,
It's a standoff.
It is. It's the Mexican standoff. No, that's a male down the bottom, but next to him, the one that just ran behind the rock, there's a young female. Oh, look, it's just going off everywhere, isn't it? There's going to be a fight in a minute. They're going to run into each other. They're all avoiding each other, really. Heaps, aren't they?
There's another one. Look at the tail there.
Going for the confrontation, are they? It's funny, everyone goes, mate, Skippy the bush kangaroo did no favours for kangaroos. They never make that noise ever. They actually more like a light barking, grunting sort of a noise that they make, or hissing at each other. That's about it. Oh, they're definitely avoiding confrontation. It's like a game of chess at the moment, isn't it? They're all manoeuvring around. I think we'll leave him to it. Oh, is he going to go up there? No, he's going to hide underneath him.
So why we're here? What's this? Oh, you don't need to adjust your wheels. That's okay.
Yardie Creek.
Yeah.